Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living. Welcome to today's episode of Wisdom Talk Radio. This is where we explore the depths of conscious living and how to live an expanded life. Join us to be inspired and encouraged, maybe transformed, and to tap into your deeper sense of joy and of possibility. I have no doubts that we have a great need for transformation on the planet so that we can manifest what is our potential that's here and it exists and it needs to be manifested. So I've invited my guest today to speak to both the challenges that we face and the path forward. I have no interest in talking just about challenges if we don't create what's possible. That way we can claim the future that is ours. I'm Laurie Seymour, host of Wisdom Talk Radio and CEO and founder of the Baca Institute, home of the Quantum Connection process. You can go to the Baca Institute to discover your unique connection with the essence of who you are by taking the Quantum Connection quiz. I always say, why quantum connection? And it's that we are each designed to directly connect with Source. And I think that's a really important point, that we directly connect with Source, but we do it in our own unique way. And knowing your own style is a kind of a beginning point to establishing and creating a deeper connection for you with the universe. It's the secret to creating what you truly want in your life, because who you are is exactly who is needed. My guest today is Cynthia Rivard, who is a spiritual teacher, business strategist, and environmental advocate. Having come into a spiritual awakening later in life, she is keenly aware of religious paradigms and cultural perceptions of New Age concepts, and instead teaches a timeless wisdom that has been diluted over the ages. Okay, I'm going to just pause for a moment and say, I'm so pleased that we get to have this conversation. There is a golden thread of truth that is woven throughout all of the world's religions and cultures, and it is this thread that underpins her teachings and will help us to create the next chapter for humanity, our golden era. Welcome, Cynthia. I am really delighted to have this conversation, to be with you today on Wisdom Talk Radio.
As am I. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be juicy, I can tell.
This is going to be juicy. Yeah, the energy is already palpable. So you talk about a new era. I just referenced a golden era. What is that? What do you mean by that? And I think that will help kind of ground our conversation to move forward.
Sure. Thank you for starting us there. I kind of made up my own phrase for this because everyone has preconceived notions when they hear terms like the new earth, paradise on earth, nirvana. There is this narrative throughout most world religions and spiritual practices of this future time that God has promised to us, this heaven on earth, this beautiful time that will take us out of the misery and suffering that has been human history. Mm-hmm. And so that is what I'm talking about. This is our time to evolve to that next chapter. But it's going to be a little different than a lot of people probably have envisioned. Mm-hmm. So there are two components. And by the way, this is channeled knowledge. I had no concept of this, really. I was very confused when I heard people talk about it in the past. So this is what has been given to me to share. And it's an important message because, you spoke oh, maybe it was before we hit record, but we were talking about manifesting this beautiful new world. And there's just some misunderstandings about how this next chapter is going to be handed to us, or if we have a high vibe, we'll get to wake up in a new dimension or something on a new earth or something like that. And although that sounds lovely, that's not actually, I was very reassured when I heard through my guidance that that's not the case. God or spirit or whatever you call our greater power loves everyone, and nobody is going to be left behind. Um, there's only one earth, and it's this one, and we need to take care of it. And we need to tap into our inner wisdom, that divine guidance that's in all of us, and wants to advise us and help us do this. We need to tap in and follow it and co-create this next era. But it's time for that. And so there's two, to get back to your question, sorry. There's two elements. The first is individual. And this is available to everyone now when they become intentional about raising their frequencies.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about what you mean by that. And it's great that you're bringing this up, because these are things I wanted to talk to.
Well, we'll go into more detail in a bit. Let me so there is the individual component of raising your frequency, which will lead to being able to develop a closer connection with your divine aspect or higher self. And then in turn, raise your consciousness and stay in resonance with those happier emotions. That's what it's all about. When people talk about nirvana, it's that happier state. Not that the outside world is different at this point, at this juncture, when we say that it's available to us now. The external world is what it is at the moment, but this raising of consciousness is more available than it's ever been to all of us to take advantage of now.
So that we can then see perhaps more clearly what's possible.
Well, absolutely, because as your frequency raises, you become more connected with divinity, and we will be able to bring more compassion in how we deal with the rest of humanity and leading the world, changing it for the better. Almost all of the structures and systems and regulations and things that are in place in the world right now are, not all of them, but a lot of them are pretty broken, aren't they? So there's a lot of recreating and co-creating we need to do, and we need to think outside of the box and for the betterment of all. What's in the best interest of everyone, not just the most convenient or the least expensive way to go, all of that. So that's kind of the second element, is when we get to the place of co-creating in the external world and making all of those changes and making this a place where there is peace on the planet. We will see this in our lifetime, Laurie. We will. It's not going to be in the next few years, but we will see it. There will be peace and a sharing of resources, so nobody is suffering without food or shelter or, scared for their safety. That's not going to be our world anymore, because we live in resonance with unconditional love, and we have compassion for our fellow humans, as well as, stewarding God's planet, which,
not to mention.
We need to do a better job there so we have a place to be in this next era.
It's so interesting to me to think about not exactly what comes first, but the different elements that you just wove together. It makes me consider, if we enter at any point into that process, into that equation, in a way we impact everything. If we have unconditional love, if we
Mhm.
really tap into unconditional love for ourselves,
Mhm.
we can't help but have that for other people. We can't help but, I don't even know if we need to be compassionate because we've almost stepped beyond compassion.
It's innate. It's there.
It's
Yeah.
there. It's just there. Yes. Does that make sense to you? Does that
Yeah.
feel
I mean, so I think what I heard was, at what point do you start? And I think the easiest for those who are on this path,
mm-hmm,
you know, spiritually curious, let's say,
mm-hmm,
the first step would be raising your consciousness because that's available. And as you
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
become more and more connected, we were just talking about this before you hit record. When you are guided and you know where that guidance is coming from, there's no fear. And you
mm,
start doing things that you maybe could have never seen yourself doing, you know, earlier on.
mm-hmm,
The wisdom that can come through and the inspired ideas and the ways that you could impact others. And it doesn't have to be the world, it could just
mm-hmm,
be a small sphere of influence that you have. We all have influence and we all have ways we can impact, but we'll be led outside the box and
mm,
we just don't know where we'll be led, but it
right.
will be powerful and we can all do this. So when those who are spiritually curious
Mm-hmm,
take those steps, we'll have clear guidance on what we can do and start that ripple. But I do say in my book, and I have another one coming out that I was guided to write from a more secular lens
ah,
because people need to hear the message.
mm-hmm.
And I say in the book, share the message. Don't share the book if they're not going to read it. If they don't want to hear anything about spiritual anything,
Mm-hmm.
don't share that. Just share the message
Right, right.
because they don't need to believe in a higher power to stand up for our environment and, something better for the next generation,
Mm-hmm,
our
mm-hmm,
children and our grandchildren to have hope
mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
they'll have a clean planet and less toxicity, which is really wreaking havoc with our health.
mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
You don't have to believe in a higher power yet to share that message and that hope to have a better world. So I think it's a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Those
And it
that
sounds
are
like you're
ready,
hitting both prongs in that way.
those of us that are ready
Mm-hmm,
will be clearly led, and those who aren't can still take action. And what's interesting, they will be a lot of them led, they just won't recognize it.
and that's okay. Well,
Yeah.
maybe we need to even say something about that because being led could be fearful to some people. Think the idea of, oh, I'm going to be led, someone's going to tell me
Oh,
what to do. And I
thank
know
you.
you don't mean
Thank you.
that.
No,
So,
not at all. What I mean is, so I'll back up. I know you
right.
get it, but not knowing who might have just come across
Sure.
this. Um, each of us has divinity inside us, our own personal divine aspect. People call it an inner wisdom, uh, uh, inner inner wisdom, higher self, higher consciousness. I've heard it referred to a lot of ways, but it's part of you and your consciousness. We all have this, so it's part of you.
Mhm.
But many of us in our modern culture have been trained to tune it out because it sometimes doesn't make analytical sense. You didn't read it somewhere. You just get that gut feeling or that knowing.
Mhm.
And it's that knowing. And some people, if they're not spiritual, will call it intuition. They get an intuitive hit. But if it's not something you've ever come across before, it's not your intuition coming from your subconscious,
Right.
it's your divine guidance.
Yeah.
That's all I'm talking about. And we always have free choice. And people left, right, and center ignore their
Mhm.
intuitive hits because it
Yes.
is scary sometimes. we will be led. You know, if you've got two ideas and you wonder what's coming from divinity, it's
Mhm.
probably the one that scares you.
I want to talk about that a little because
Good.
the capacity to have discernment about where things come from, and especially an inner sensing of something, is so important. I mean, I include that in my teaching of people about how to listen to inner guidance. But
Mhm.
I know that I had so much self-doubt, so much doubt about, well, is this my ego? Is this, oh, I just, another
Right.
way that I use to determine that is not just the scarier idea, but where do you feel the love? Where do you feel that flow in your body?
Mhm.
Because you may be scared, but it maybe that's excitement. And so that feeling of, oh, that's the resonance that you
Right.
spoke about before.
Right. And when I jokingly say it's the one that scares you, it's because we all have our subconscious is created to keep us safe, and it fears, of course you know this well, it senses change or anything
Mm.
new or different as a potential threat.
Right,
So when I say, well, it's the one that scares you, I just mean if it's a big change, your subconscious isn't suggesting it to you.
right, right. And you're
So
going to go, wait a minute.
you still want to do your due diligence,
Yes.
but it's likely coming from somewhere else.
Hmm,
Yeah.
hmm. So I want to just go back to something that you mentioned a little bit ago about the easiest place to start with all of this is in terms of raising your consciousness. And say a little about how you suggest to people to do that. I mean, that's really we could talk for the next 3 hours about that.
Yes. Well, the way it was presented to me and happened was much simpler than I thought it would be,
Mm,
but it started with frequency. So I mentioned in the book that a couple of years ago, the frequencies available to humans expanded exponentially.
uh-huh.
A lot of people who maybe have been interested in energy work or, you know, in the spiritual space for a while have probably heard of Dr. David Hawkins, who had the work of human frequency and the chart of or scale of human consciousness he developed in the 80s. And that remained relevant until just a couple of years ago. And then the everything expanded exponentially. So when we measure frequency, which is the speed or pattern of your vibration,
Mhm. In every
um,
cell of the body. I mean, that's kind of what you're saying, right?
the yes, of the whole
Okay.
body,
Hmm.
your frequency or the human frequency used to top out the chart that we could aspire to topped out around 700 or 800 bioenergy units,
Okay.
which was up there, you know,
Hmm.
not maybe enlightenment. I can't remember his chart, but it was up there, you know. And then when the frequencies expanded, the top of the chart now goes to 500 million, which is a frequency everyone on the planet can reach if they're intentional about trying to raise their frequency. And you don't do this by just thinking happy thoughts. That's
Mhm.
a misunderstanding.
Yes.
But everyone's frequency wants to rise. That's the good news.
Kind of like how we're
Um,
created.
it wants to rise, and there's
Mhm.
a couple of tripping points that come up with that. But
Mhm.
when we're intentional about raising our frequency, you know, divinity operates at a much higher frequency, and so as our frequency rises, it becomes easier to communicate, to receive that communication from divinity, which when I talk about channeling or receiving guidance,
Mhm.
it's just receiving through what people call sixth sense or clairsenses, you have that knowing, or maybe you're clairsentience or clairvoyant, but it becomes much easier for them to communicate with you when you are at a higher frequency. So that's a slam dunk. You raise your
Mm-hmm.
frequency,
Mm-hmm.
you open up this field of possibilities with the guidance that wants to come through. They've been with you your whole life,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're not getting those pings very often, or you're just not sure, it's a skill we need to work on intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
As you, I'm sure, talk about,
Yeah.
it's a skill. So we start out not as clear, and then it gets better and it gets easier. But then the really great part I didn't even realize was coming once I really connected and my frequency
Uh-huh.
shot up,
Mm-hmm.
they started helping raise my consciousness.
Mm.
Now, when I talk about raise consciousness, being a leadership trainer from back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, it sounds a lot like emotional intelligence.
But it's more than that, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's similar, but it is your awareness. Your consciousness is your awareness, excuse me, of yourself in relation to others and of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And as it rises, the that emotional management we have to do with emotional intelligence, which is something you always have to be conscious of and revisit because it's a skill that can backslide as well as improving,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes easy
Yes.
because you know the big uh, learning point that again becomes easy as your consciousness rises is letting go of attachment, which you may have heard of with I think the Buddhists talk about this a lot. Attachment to things things, people, outcomes are just a big contributor to misery
Mm-hmm.
or unhappiness in the world. And as your consciousness rises, it just becomes easier to let go because we all know the only thing we can control is ourselves, our thoughts, which create our emotions, and then our words and our actions. We control that. That's it. That's all we control.
Mm-hmm.
And through our words and actions, we can try and influence others, which I talk a lot about. But you still can't control that they will hear you the way you want them to, because everyone has their own filters,
Exactly.
right? Or that they'll react the way you want them to. You can't control any of that. And it just becomes easy to let all that go as your consciousness rises.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and, to love people, even if you really don't like them, that's okay.
Exactly. And being in that place of unconditional love, recognizing that that God is sitting across from you, even if you don't like their act.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people make not good, healthy choices, or, they do things all the time we may not agree with, but it's not up to us and it's not in
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
control. So
Yes.
just letting go of that and allowing that, well, God or divinity loves them. I love them too, but I don't like what they're doing.
Right.
I don't agree with them. I don't like them.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I'm
And
not
that's okay.
attached
And
to,
that's okay. I don't
yeah,
need to love them. I mean, I don't need to like them.
right. Right.
Yeah.
So this is the beauty of number one, raising the frequency, and
Mm-hmm.
then getting to that place of a greater connection,
Mm-hmm.
communication,
Mm-hmm.
and raising your consciousness. And again, that we can do now,
Mm-hmm.
and that will help then the building and recreating of a better world
Yeah.
that desperately needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I somewhere, well, both in some of the materials you sent, but also in your book, you talk about how the law of creation demands, and I really love that word demand. Most people will get like, oh, that we have to co-create, that we're nothing by ourselves. but when we join in with the divine, we are everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so why would we not do that? And then it's a it's a co-creative dance to then see how we want to what we want to make of this world,
That's
what
right.
needs to be brought into creation, because in that communication comes the direction. Oh,
Right.
and the
Or
how,
ideas. I
the
mean,
idea.
there's a lot that, you get the power of the mastermind as we discuss with each
Mhm.
other. We bring our divine downloads out into the open to
Mhm.
discuss.
Mhm.
And then there's this synergy and new ideas bubble up. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of welcoming and embracing different perspectives, which I
Mhm.
think I talk about in that book, because that's where we find peace. We embrace the
Hmm.
different perspectives.
Mhm. Mhm.
We have compassion for them and where those people are coming from. We may not always find a workaround, but we can understand where they're coming from. And frequently, the best ideas are the ones that nobody had, but we make together,
Mhm. Mhm.
with guidance,
Yeah.
hopefully. But we kind of co-create. There's another use of it
Mhm.
with others who had a different idea, but when we all come together, it's the best,
Yeah.
you know.
And if we can each, if, I think of, because this is work I've done with teams, when each member of that team is committed to that co-creation, it committed to that connection and to the raising of their own consciousness, the raising of their own frequency, then you've got some real magic that starts to happen in that room when you come together.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because I don't ever at least experience, I talk about it as the energies. I'll say it this way: divinity fighting with divinity. Oh no, mine's better than yours. Then we
Yeah.
know we're an ego.
Yep.
Then we know
Yes.
okay, let's reconnect. Let's go back inside, take a breath, and come back.
That's right. Putting aside the ego. That's another thing I talk about in the book is egoless
Egoless
leadership.
leadership. Yes. Maybe
That's
this is a
leading with
moment to speak
compassion.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's what happens when we set aside and we have compassion and go with what's right for everyone, not necessarily our idea or what we wanted or what we thought was right,
mm,
but what we all determined together is the best path forward. Because if we get stuck in a stalemate, there's no path forward.
and then we know we're in ego if we're
Yeah,
stuck in that
yeah,
kind of battle.
that's right.
So you also speak to feminine leadership.
Mhm.
How would you, or do you distinguish that? You must, if you even use that term,
Mhm.
from what we see in the general population as leadership.
Yeah. I love this discussion because, man, did I struggle with this when I started my career,
Mhm.
because I had all male, a predominantly male work culture and male leaders. And I went in there, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and I am woman, hear me roar. And I won't use the word, but I was not nice because I was all in the masculine energy. And that doesn't mean men aren't nice, but
No.
we think of the masculine energy as assertive and, maybe a little aggressive and picking a fight when, there might be a softer way and diplomacy around the issue.
Mhm.
So when I talk about feminine leadership, I'm clear to stress that men and women both can embrace it, and we need both of those energies. It's
Mhm.
like, the symbol of yin and yang. Am I getting that right? Yes.
Yes. Hmm.
I'm
I
listening
know
to.
I could see both of those things happening.
Do you want to tell me something? No. um, it's this blending of the light and the dark, the male and the female, And really, the best leaders know when to step up in the compassion and the
Mm.
listening skills and all of that. And they know when, okay, we need to make a decision. We need to be assertive, or we need to be a little more analytical,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
are more the male energy skills. We all need those.
Yes.
But it's the female energy that predominantly in, or it used to be anyway, when I was in a corporate workplace, the predominant energy and what was expected was that male, male energy. Well, it was
Hmm.
mostly men in the room,
Right,
but
right.
there was no, compassion and nurturing
Mm.
and really listening well and letting others, if you were in charge, it was your idea that would win out, kind of thing. And
Hmm.
we lose that way. It doesn't matter who's got the idea. If it's the male clerk and they have the best idea, we
Hmm.
should listen.
Right.
So that's what I mean by the feminine style of leadership that we need to embrace more of,
Hmm.
not in turning away from those male qualities we need, but we've got enough of that going on
Right, right, right. So I
for the
want to
most
talk a
part.
little bit about aligned action, and I know that's a term that you use. It's a term that I use as well, and it I love that you bring it into co-creation. That it and that to make a distinction between, oh, I'm just going to think happy thoughts, and
Mhm.
therefore that's going to change things, feels very passive to me. It's like how I'd see a lot of people work with meditation. It's a passive. I just want to be in bliss
Mhm.
because then I'm diffused. There's no way to take action. There's no
Right,
way to co-create. There's no way to even consider something I might do in service to the world. Do you
right.
see it
Which
that way?
Yes, absolutely. And the big thing I start out talking about the law of creation, stressing, people, there's been a little misunderstanding about this manifesting talk, or the law of, was
Uh,
it the
uh,
secret and the law of attraction, I
the law of
guess.
attraction. Thank you. I couldn't think of it either.
It's not actually, I'm told, one of the divine laws, but
No.
the law of creation is, it's how everything in the
Mm.
cosmos was created, and it's how our next era will be created, and it requires aligned action. And by aligned action, I mean it's aligned because we are in alignment with our divinity and receiving guidance and acting on it.
Yes. Wow.
So that's how the co creation process works. They're here, they're with us, they want
Hmm.
to help, but they're not going to do it for us. Click a magical finger and
Yeah.
put us into a new era, because we have to show we can be responsible and steward the earth and each other.
Mm.
So aligned action is, getting in touch with our guidance and doing what we feel called to do when, at the right time, not just
Mhm.
tabling it then for
Mhm.
2 years, because that'll be too late. There'll be a different guidance coming through then. It's the right action at the right time.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's one of the precepts of the law of creation that has to be in place. We have to be taking aligned action. It doesn't, anything new will never be created without action. And
Without
that
action.
included the cosmos.
On our parts as humans.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It feels to me, and I'd love to get your take on this. It feels to me like that's part of the design is we're here in the physical realm. We want to make changes and see changes in the physical realm, but we're
Mhm.
not imposed upon. I mean, that seems to be part of our learning in coming into physical bodies
Mhm.
is something about taking that action and it being a part of our own developmental process.
To learn, to remember, to come back to who we are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it is, or it can be part of the process. It hasn't been for a long time with humanity. I mean, there have been times
Mm-hmm.
when various civilizations were very connected,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow, things happen and humans would get away from it and lose sight of who
Mm-hmm.
they are
Mm-hmm.
and that connection that has always been there
Yeah.
that we ignore.
That we ignore, that we forget.
Yeah.
I
The
kind of put it
thing,
in quotes.
yeah, I had a big blank slate for the majority of my
Sure.
life,
Sure. Sure. I mean,
not
I think that
remembering it.
that's our journey.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I just
No, no,
completely
I'm
lost my
watching you
thought.
listen.
A little too much chatter up here. I lost my thought there. Let's keep going. It'll come back to me.
Okay. Okay. Um, well, there's something about because I've just written this book about forgetting and unconditional remembrance that it's something that's very big in my own body, and in my own awareness that we have choice, but
Mhm.
we don't feel like we've had choice for a long time. And then there's a whole process of remembering that feels in some way like just part of our inherent part of the journey of being human and
Mhm.
and coming into higher consciousness.
Yeah, it's interesting. Humans always have choice, but choice is a little bit part of the challenge and the dilemma because the choices we continue to make are not the healthiest and the best. And when we, to a little bit, give up what we might have chosen and listen to our guidance.
Mm.
I struggled with this a little bit. Like, okay, are you telling me what to do? Like, I thought I had free choice. And,
Right,
and
right. And you
basically,
do.
yeah, you do. If
Hmm.
you want to go that way, which isn't going to be as fulfilling,
Hmm.
which isn't why you're here. This is not your soul's path and purpose. But if you want to
Hmm.
go that way, okay,
Sure.
you have choice.
Hmm. Hmm. But you did elect to raise your frequency so that you could receive some guidance and clarity on
Yeah,
this journey,
and
on this
and to
path,
follow it.
and to follow
Yes,
it.
and to follow it because I mean that's the other thing I was starting to say. We're in such a transitional time right now.
Hmm.
Most, I would say all who are called to listen to this podcast, who are spiritually curious, maybe not really figuring it out yet, all of you listening are here to help with this evolution, creating this next era. And you're going to be, even if you know what your purpose is right this second, it's going to change or it's going to expand.
Yes.
And you really have to lean in and listen. And you can question, be curious, but really listen and see how that feels and be inspired and empowered by the guidance and stepping into new areas because we have a lot of work to do.
Hmm.
And so lots of people are going to be getting these downloads and called to do new things because we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And
So
we don't
I
have to be
speaking of
scared by
purpose,
that.
right,
I,
right.
I, I so appreciate what you've just said about changing a purpose, expanding a purpose. Because
Mhm,
my sense is that purpose is not a one and done. Oh, I've discovered my purpose and now I've got it. But that to be sensitive and aware as it evolves, as we evolve,
mhm.
we're going to be called into more and more.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you were living 100 years ago and following your purpose, it's going to look different at 20 than it is at 60 or 80. You're a
Yes.
different person. Hopefully, you're continuing to learn and grow and
Mhm.
meet different people. So regardless of the time, the era that humanity was in,
Mm,
it could and would probably evolve as you do. But now I just can't even imagine how everyone's going to be called forward and the things that we're going to be inspired to do. And it's
yeah.
so exciting.
Hmm.
It,
That is exciting. That is exciting. I think that maybe that's even a good place for us to come home to. You know what I mean? To bring this to a close, because feeling that sense of excitement and that sense of possibility takes us into action. And instead of the fear of, oh my God, there's too much and I'm
yes.
overwhelmed.
Can I share one more thing? I
Please.
love sharing this. It's the definition of hope that was given to me.
Hmm.
The book's Hope,
Huh?
Hope for a New Era. Hope is faith. It could be in that vision and this beautiful future we're imagining. Faith in action.
Hmm.
Because when you take even the smallest action, you start to feel empowered and you get more inspiration to take more action. You just have to start any small little action that you're called to take, because we can sit on the couch and analyze it forever
Yeah.
in overwhelm. There's just so much to do. Where do you start?
Hmm.
Just start.
Just start. Just
That's how you
start.
create hope.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's a wonderful place for us to close. Cynthia, thank you for such an inspiring conversation.
It has been a delight, Laurie. I really appreciate sharing
Ah.
your time and having a chance to speak to your listeners. Thank you.
You're welcome. Before we move on to what I'm going to close with, will you share how people can get your book when the new one? Well, probably by the time this comes out, the new one will be out.
Mhm.
What's the title of that one, and how do people find out more?
Absolutely. Well, the easiest two ways, I guess, my name, cynthiarivard.com, is my website,
Hmm.
or hopeforanew.era.com will get you to my website. There's information on that book, which released June 15th.
Hmm.
And then the next one will also be there. It's called A New Breed of Leader, and that comes out the end of August. And if I can just mention, there's some
Yes.
free resources
Great.
that I encourage everyone to check out, because one of them is how to measure your frequency. It's like a 10-minute video training
Great.
about measuring it and how to raise it. So I encourage everyone to
Oh,
check that out.
that's wonderful. I don't think I have that link to that specific thing, but it's on your website because I all of
Um,
this will be in the show notes.
yes, I'll send it to you.
Please, please, because I would like to include it in the show notes. I think that's a really magnificent gift. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Cynthia. And then thanks to our audience for being here with us today at Wisdom Talk Radio. You remember you can join us here regularly for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And if you've enjoyed this, please do leave us a review, because that's how other people get this kind of not just information, but the capacity to transform, the capacity for more. And that's why we're here. And if you want more for yourself about your own individual thriving with your personal quantum connection, take the quantum connection quiz now, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.